It was hell on wheels.
The rain hasn't stopped. It's loud and we're screaming to be heard.
I heard trees snapping like twigs. I saw Mother Nature unleash.
My life definitely was in danger.
You could hear the boulders rolling like you're at a bowling alley.
If you cross it, you're going to end up dead.
Oh my gosh, we got problems.
From the Weather Channel, this is Storm Stories with meteorologist Jim Cantori.
October 2003. Two fires crackled to life in California's San Bernardino Mountains, about 60 miles east of Los Angeles. Scorching winds fan the flames into raging wildfires, which devour more than 1,000 homes. It takes a week for firefighters to contain the blazes. They have won this battle, but another is in the making. With the ground cover burned away, there's nothing holding the hillsides in place, so the charred earth is unable to absorb much rainfall.
Our canyon areas, it was completely burnt off. We knew in a large rainstorm we would have mudslides.
Officials warn residents, including those in Waterman Canyon, where about 60 people live below these sloping hills. Native Californian David Richardson takes action. His house has been in his family for 3 generations, and he doesn't want to leave.
I took a few hundred sandbags and I put them in different strategic little areas here on my property where that in the past I've had water flow coming down off the mountains.
Residents are lucky for 8 weeks, but on Christmas Day, a rainstorm moves over the San Bernardino Mountains. Moist Pacific air hits the range, which forces the air upward. That releases heavy rain, as much as 1 inch an hour. Then, in the early afternoon, a flash flood sweeps down the mountainous terrain, mixing with mud and ash from the wildfires. A local cameraman captures a waterfall of rocks showering down on the canyon road. Parts of the San Bernardino Mountains have begun to give way. In Waterman Canyon, David Richardson notices runoff is starting to flood his yard. He and his tenant Rick Williams, who lives in a house on his property, have been digging a trench to catch the excess water.
The second we threw the last shovel full of dirt, we just turned around and looked. It looked like lava coming off a volcano.
It was ash and dirt coming right down the channel that we had just dug. So I was excited that, hey, what we had just dug is, we'll be all right.
David is about to change his mind. Around 1 p.m., he is on the telephone when he hears a strange noise outside. The sound of the creek has changed. Boulders are shifting, creating a deep grinding sound. Their eerie pitch reverberates as Richardson races out of the house. Rick is already outside, awestruck at what he's witnessing. A mudslide is barreling directly toward them.
It was like 20 feet high, and it was solid gray.
I heard trees snapping like twigs, like toothpicks. But I knew something was just wiping these huge trees out. I could see a wall of water coming.
It was scary. It was carrying along boulders that were size of Volkswagens. It was hell on wheels.
The debris flow thunders toward their only escape route, a footbridge that spans the creek and leads to the main road. The men run back inside their homes to grab some money. Richardson sprints to the bridge, just 10 feet away. Rick is not far behind. He sees his landlord make it across. At that moment, the teeming water descends directly in front of Williams.
It took that bridge out like it was nothing. And it was fast. And the only thing that was left was like 2 boards.
Water raging like I've never seen it rage before. 30 feet wide, 20 feet deep. Whole trees just blistering by. And this is within a matter of 2 minutes.
David looks back and sees that Rick is on the other side of the creek, stranded.
I'm grateful to be over here. Poor Rick, you know, is stuck over there on the other side.
It would have been suicide to try to go into it to get out. I'm trapped now for the duration.
A half-mile uphill, a mountain retreat called St. Sophia Camp has already been hit. The torrent of water and mud swept away a group of children and adults spending Christmas here. 2 of them are trapped in thick mud near the campsite. San Bernardino County Fire Captain Rick McClintock is dispatched to the scene.
It just wiped out this camp, just totally took it out, probably 200 foot wide, and just gone, completely gone.
The veteran rescue coordinator is all too familiar with this precarious region.
Waterman Canyon, it's a situation where you don't really want to be in a fire or a flood because there is no safe area to go to.
6 miles away, freelance cameraman Tyrone Johnson is at home monitoring police scanners. He shoots news video for local TV stations. Johnson's Christmas dinner is interrupted by a radio dispatch about debris flowing across Waterman Canyon Road.
No sooner that I got into my vehicle, I heard a San Bernardino City firefighter say, well, there's a kid up the roadway. He's covered in mud.
Johnson learns there's a second victim as well, a man trapped in mud. As he arrives at the location, he sees Alan Simpson, a battalion chief with the city fire department.
Tyrone is very professional. He works around us, and we work with him real well.
Tyrone knows this is different from other rescues he's covered. He's overwhelmed by the frantic activity.
I've been told I'm an adrenaline junkie. It was no longer about having an adrenaline rush. It was a matter of safety.
The wall of water and mud that came through St. Sophia Camp hit a nearby creek. The water is forced out of the creek and rages across Waterman Canyon Road.
It had turned into a river at that point. This is a danger for all of us.
A team of rescuers tries to maneuver into place. They're in a dicey situation. The only way across the water is in the bucket of a tractor. When McClintock makes it to the accident site, he's shocked by the creek's ferocity.
If you cross it, you're going to end up dead. You're going to get knocked off your feet. I've never seen anything like this in my 20 years.
McClintock climbs into the bucket. It moves across the violent water and deposits him on the other side. When he steps out, he sinks into the ground.
It was all just boot-sucking mud. It's like quicksand. And so you try to run and try to find a rock to stand on or something to stand up out of this mud.
Firefighters are able to rescue 13-year-old Ramon Mesa Jr. He's whisked into an ambulance. Remarkably, the teen has only minor injuries. Meanwhile, McClintock makes it to the second victim, 34-year-old Ricardo Navarro. Navarro is standing thigh-deep in mud, pinned against a boulder by a 6-foot log. McClintock knows there's not a minute to lose.
It wasn't a real good feeling, but I knew if we didn't do something, this gentleman was going to die.
Navarro is hysterical. He tells rescuers that the flood ripped his 7-year-old daughter from his arms. They put Navarro in a harness, hoping to pull him out. Rain continues to fall, hampering the mission. As the minutes tick by, rescuers are growing uneasy.
There's a definite sense of urgency because we don't know what's going on above us with the rain.
It just kept coming down, very heavy. That's just going to keep adding to my anxiety, obviously, because we still have the potential for having a lot more landslide, a lot more mudslide coming down on us.
Firefighters are trying to remove the log that's pinning Navarro. They fire up a chainsaw and begin cutting into the wood. After 30 minutes, the huge log finally splits open. As rescuers pull it away, their victim suddenly collapses.
And we thought, well, he just died on us.
But Navarro has only fainted. Suddenly he comes to and starts screaming to be freed from the thick mud.
It was very stressful. He wanted to get out, and we guaranteed him that we'd get him out, and we weren't going to leave him there.
Firefighters managed to free his left leg, but the right one is still trapped. They dig with their hands, but as one handful of mud is removed, another oozes in. The rain is getting heavier, and Rick McClintock knows they're running out of time.
The creek has now doubled its size and doubled its speed, and there's larger rocks coming down the creek.
This wasn't going as fast as I would have liked. And you're starting to really think, are we going to have to leave him?
We were going to come back the next day and find him stuck in the mud, dead. We had made the decision, without even saying a whole lot, that we were going to have to somehow get this guy's leg amputated.
It's about 3 p.m., Christmas Day, 2003. 60 miles east of Los Angeles, a flash flood and a mudslide rip through the San Bernardino Mountains. At least 14 people are missing. A cameraman captures the water's fury. In the Waterman Canyon area, firefighters are trying to rescue 34-year-old Ricardo Navarro. His right leg is trapped in mud. Fire Captain Rick McClintock knows at any minute another mudslide could descend on his 6-man team. He has a critical decision to make.
How much time are we going to give this guy without getting all of us hurt or possibly killed?
He radios Chief Alan Simpson, requesting an extra 10 minutes before pulling his men out.
10 more minutes, and we might be in the same situation this gentleman's in. You're not going to lose everybody for one person. That's not something that I could look their families in the face and say, yeah, that was a good decision.
But McClintock persuades the chief that they can get it done. The weather is turning worse. A half-mile downhill, Rick Williams' home is surrounded by 14 feet of water. He is forced to the second floor while the flooded creek thrashes against his walls. Rick listens as boulders roll past. He climbs onto a countertop and leans out to touch the water.
I knew if it's that high, the road outside it had to have been gone too. So everybody else in the Oak Canyon was probably in the same situation that I was.
His friend and landlord, David Richardson, made it out seconds before the water closed in. Now, separated from Rick by the creek, David is trying to maintain contact with his friend after their cell phone batteries die.
I was really worried about his safety. I tried to shine this little flashlight that I had over there to get his attention, but I couldn't.
I wanted so bad to know that somebody knew that I was still over there. I was more scared than I've been in my entire life.
It's about 4 p.m. Across the region, the floods are still raging. Work crews are out in force trying to clear the roads that are choked with debris. In Waterman Canyon, firefighters are still trying to free Ricardo Navarro. As freelance cameraman Tyrone Johnson shoots video of the rescue, he notices the weather is deteriorating.
It was getting worse by the moment. At any point in time, that hillside could come down on top of us.
Minutes later, his worst fear is realized. About 100 yards up the road, a slope breaks loose. It misses the firefighters, but scatters debris across the road. Firefighter Dan Rainey knows they're cut off and in trouble.
It's not a good feeling. These vehicles are now pinned with all this debris flow. They're not going to drive out of this.
We were isolated at that point. We had 8 vehicles and 2 ambulances that could not get out.
Simpson orders the driver of the tractor to leave the rescue site and help clear the road. Within 20 minutes, one ambulance has been dug out. It speeds to a nearby hospital with 13-year-old Ramon Mesa Jr., who had been saved from the floodwaters 2 hours earlier. Firefighters are running out of time to free Ricardo Navarro. His right leg is stuck in 2 feet of mud.
It was like a vacuum. So as we pull harder and bounce more, his leg starts to progressively come out. Finally, his leg just pops out. Everybody gives a big, loud cheer.
The battalion chief orders the tractor back down to the creek. Firefighters drape rain jackets over Navarro. They carry him to the edge of the water. The rescue team loads him into the tractor's bucket. It slowly crosses the treacherous torrent to the second ambulance. Paramedics determine he has no life-threatening injuries. Navarro can only wait for news about his missing daughter. Meanwhile, Captain McClintock waits for the tractor to return and deliver him and his men across the ferocious current. The men are unaware that 150 yards away, the road is still blocked by rocks and mud, trapping them next to the swift-moving water.
The problem is we had no communication with the tractor operator. We didn't realize that there was a mud flow that had closed the road.
We need to clear the road up, or we're all going to be stuck down here.
There was a huge sinking feeling in us because now we're on the other side of this creek and we can watch it getting faster and deeper.
The tractor finally clears an escape route and returns to ferry the firefighters to safety.
To finally get them back across there was a great relief. It was a weight off my shoulders.
All 17 firefighters, as well as cameraman Tyrone Johnson, navigate their vehicles along the mud-slick road out of the canyon. It's now 6 p.m. 7 miles away, San Bernardino firefighters are dispatched to yet another mudslide. This time, it's at a campground of America at the base of the San Bernardino Mountains. Emergency personnel survey the damage. A 12-foot wall of mud and water has torn through the mobile homes. Only twisted remnants of metal remain.
Half of the available campsites were now replaced with huge boulders. One half of this campground is gone.
Firefighters gather up residents and lead them to safety. But it's not an easy trip.
It gets difficult because of the terrain, the mud, and the fact that we had no light other than the lights we were holding in our hands or had on our helmet.
Tyrone Johnson hears the dispatch about KOA on his scanners. The mud-choked roads keep him from getting inside the camp. Yet he still catches the first glimpse of the victims as they emerge from the devastation.
We're talking about older people, middle-aged people, and children that were being walked out. Some of the adults, they had a look of absolute shock and dismay on their faces.
Covered in mud, they are loaded into vehicles and shuttled to fire stations. On this Christmas night, emergency personnel learn that 2 people are still missing. Firefighters begin to search for them in the pitch black.
It was quiet, it was dark, we had no lights, and we had the potential for more victims.
December 26, 2003, San Bernardino, California. Parts of the county are in ruins from mudslides and floods. By noon, authorities know that at least 6 people are dead at 2 local campgrounds. Freelance cameraman Tyrone Johnson is at the KOA campground. He sees motorhomes smashed against trees.
It appeared as though maybe a bomb had went off. I've never seen anything like that, the destruction.
13 miles away in Waterman Canyon, the floodwaters have finally receded. Rick Williams emerges from his home where he was trapped by the floodwaters. David Richardson, his friend and landlord, leaves a neighbor's house where he spent the night. He's anxious to find out about Rick and his property.
I tell you what, I was amazed that my home was still here.
No trees were left standing. Broken trees everywhere. Trees in the house. They came right through the window.
Just a half mile above them, search and rescue personnel comb St. Sophia Camp. 10 people are missing. Dogs are brought in to help in the search. Fire Captain Rick McClintock is shocked by the destruction.
There was I-beams, big metal beams that were just bent around logs and around trees like, a stick around your finger.
The first day of searching the campground yields no survivors or bodies.
It was mentally exhausting. It was physically exhausting looking for the bodies because after a while, everything is the same color.
The next day, McClintock and his team decide to search the creek bed where they had rescued 34-year-old Ricardo Navarro. A tractor crew digs for several days. By December 29th, they find 6 bodies. One is an 8-month-old baby boy. In the end, 16 people were killed in the floods and mudslides, including Ricardo Navarro's 7-year-old daughter.
We were ready for a flood situation. This was a little more than we expected.
Mother Nature, you need to respect it. It's got some energy and power that's just, it's undescribable.
You can never assume that just because it's water, that it can't kill you.
I tell you what, Christmas morning, I saw Mother Nature unleash.
What other areas of the U.S. are particularly vulnerable to mudslides? The answer may surprise you when Storm Stories returns. So what other areas of the U.S. are particularly vulnerable to mudslides? Mudslides can occur on any steep hillside and along riverbanks. Many of the biggest ones are in the West, California, Washington, Oregon, and Colorado. However, in the East, Virginia, West Virginia, and other Appalachian areas are also particularly vulnerable. Heavy rains that waterlog the slope are the culprit, whether from prolonged winter storms, thunderstorms, or tropical systems. For Storm Stories, I'm meteorologist Jim Cantore. Your local forecast is next.
This is the worst storm in the history of the